Welcome. I would love to just ask you to introduce yourself first and tell me a bit about what you're doing at the moment.
Sure. So first of all, I'm so happy to be here and have this chat with you. And my name is Khadija Stewart. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, which is in the Caribbean. So yay, nice weather 24/7. What I do, I am an environmental advocate. So I just completed my master's in climate change and development. And in being from the Caribbean, we are one of the most vulnerable regions to the impacts of climate change. And I would like to keep my home and I would like for others to also keep their homes. It only makes sense that, I fight for the environment and I educate people about the impacts of climate change and what they could do about it and like how it affects the important stuff around us, like our water, our food. And then again, being from the Caribbean and being an island, we're all surrounded by the ocean. So it's only fair that we also include the ocean into the conversation in terms of protecting our home and climate change, etc. And I do all this through my company, Ecovybz Environmental Creatives, Ecovybz for short. And I chose a very fun, simple, easy name so that people could feel comfortable and get involved. Because a lot of times the environmental space can seem overwhelmed. The vocabulary is very high, the jargon, and not a lot of people could relate it or understand. So I try my best to make everything as engaging and as fun as possible while still having a serious message or call to action involved. So that is me in a nutshell. I have a blog, I have a podcast, I do storytelling initiatives, and I just put out content again to educate people.
Fantastic. So, what was the journey leading up to creating Eco Vibes for you? Because I see on your profile, you've studied this stuff, right? You've worked in environmental science for many years. So, yeah, tell me a bit more about the journey. And I would love to hear a bit more about Trinidad and Tobago, because, yeah, as you said, you're on an island, you're in a pretty vulnerable space, and the ocean is all around you,
Mhm.
right?
So my journey is actually very interesting. Again, I mentioned growing up on an island, so I would have frequently visited the beach. I would have gone to, rivers, be one with the environment growing up. And I was also heavily addicted to National Geographic and Discovery Channel. So that's where I would learn all about the oceans, etc. All the amazing things happening. And it was only in my late teens, so around 16, 17, 18 years old, I was introduced to the topic of environmental science. And I was like, oh, well, this is very interesting. I didn't know all these things were happening. And, this could affect us as a region or as my country, etc. So then I decided to study it. I was very good at it. So I said, well, why not? And then in doing my undergrad and my master's, I got more knowledge. But after my master's, I could not get a job. I was unemployed for a very long time. And I realized, okay, I have all this knowledge. There's so much people in my country that don't have this knowledge, don't understand the concepts. Because again, we say things like climate change, sustainable development, but what does that mean to the average person on the streets? How does that translate to their life? So I said, you know what? I have the information. Let me start a blog. And I just started writing content and just thinking of the average person in mind with all the information I was writing. And then people gravitated towards it. And I was like, maybe this is something I could really do. And then through the blog, I was given an experience to become a member of the World Youth Parliament for Water. And that's when I learned that young people actually have a voice and that we could use it in the environmental space, whether it be climate change, water, etc. And then through that, I was given the opportunity to join the Peace Boat Ocean and Climate Youth Ambassador Program. And that is when things really skyrocketed because I had to speak on my country, I had to speak on the Caribbean, I had to speak on climate change and ocean issues. And I could not be an effective speaker if I was not knowledgeable. If I didn't know what was going on, if I couldn't translate the information properly. So yeah, and then through Peace Board, we were given so many opportunities to develop campaigns, to visit different countries, to interact with students, to speak at webinars, etc. And that is just the road I have been taken to get to where I am. And now I'm also a Sustainable Ocean Alliance youth leader. And that has definitely opened up my mind to the opportunities that exist in the blue space, the problems, the solutions, etc. And now I'm trying to tie all of this back into Ecovybz and grow the company to offer services for people such as storytelling, content creation, youth development, because unfortunately, you asked me to talk about Trinidad, so here we go. Unfortunately, we have this saying here in Trinidad that children must be seen and not heard, and that is essentially taking away the voice from young people without even realizing that that's what you're doing. So what I'm trying to do is break that and let children and let young people find their voice through different, whether it be webinars, whether it be boot camps, whether it be innovation labs, etc. Just letting them know that, hey guys, you all are also affected by the problem. Let's have a conversation about it, because apart from children must be seen and not heard, we also have this next saying that, when adults are speaking, it's adults in the room. This is adult conversation. So you go inside and you play with your toys, and we literally leave them out of the conversation 24/7, which I find is absolutely horrible, because we all have ideas, we all have solutions, we all could come together, we all are affected by the problems differently. So in order to have like a meaningful, holistic solution or approach to tackle the problem, we need to have everyone involved. So yeah, that has been my environmental journey thus far. And in terms of where I'm from, so like I mentioned, the Caribbean and Trinidad is literally like 7 miles away from Venezuela, which is the South American country. So we're right there. We're basically part of South America if you think about it and stuff. And we are fortunately and unfortunately an oil and gas nation. And I say fortunately because this has provided us with our wealth. This is how we are able to have free tertiary education and have all the resources that we have. But again, because of this, well, a lot of our stuff is subsidized. So like electricity is subsidized, water is subsidized, and we pay next to nothing for it. And because we pay next to nothing for it, we don't value it. So it's wasted, it's used recklessly, and that translates to how we interact with the environment in general. Like we just have, well, not we, but like some of us just have a don't care attitude, which is something that we say here about the environment and its importance to us and stuff, because we don't interact with it in the way that I guess our ancestors or people that came before us would have. Before, you used to go to a river, get a bucket, fill your water, go back home, bathe with it. So if you're filling a bucket of water, you would definitely look at that bucket when you're making the journey to make sure when you reach back home, you have all the water to. If you're just recklessly turning a tap, you're not, because when you turn the tap, water runs out. So yeah, it's just the mindset here is very challenging to deal with, because it's just, well, the resources are just there. The end. We can do whatever we want with it. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's a work in progress. I'm working on it. So yeah.
I hear that, and I mean, I see that in Europe where I live as well. Even if it's not free electricity or subsidized, even if it's quite expensive, I think most people are affluent enough that they don't really have to think about it. And yeah, there's
Yeah.
almost this entitled belief, right, that I turn the tap on and water will always come out, and people don't realize,
Always.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when I read about future predictions, like how much oil do we have anyway, how long will we have clean
Mm-hmm.
water, other people just don't want to have that conversation at all, right? They just don't want to engage with it.
Yeah. Or if they do have the conversation, they remove themselves from the problem. So it's almost like, okay, that will happen, but that's not happening to me. That's not happening in our country, so we're fine. Which is
Yeah.
also very strange. A very strange mindset to have. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And it's a kind of, I don't know, a kind of defense mechanism, or just, yeah, the way people are raised to always expect
Mm-hmm.
this to be there. But yeah, so have you got any plans for how storytelling or how Ecovybz is going to start shifting that where you are?
So again, well, I'm sure you notice I speak about children a lot because I feel like that is my biggest target audience. I love them so much. They're so knowledgeable. They're so much fun, they're innocent, and they see the world as is. We as adults or older minds, we complicate things, and they just see simple. Well, why don't just do that? Just do this, without thinking about all the barriers that have been placed on us by society or by the information that we've collected. So moving forward with Ecovybz and storytelling and stuff, I am working on, a children's book on creating other children's stories to help get them involved in the whole process, to help them better understand, bring it to their level, let them know what they can do, how they can do it and stuff. And again, storytelling. That's with the trend aspect. So with the podcast, I've been having these great environmental conversations with people to again bring their story to the forefront, because we all, well, not all of us, but a lot of us know the facts and the figures and the science and the articles, and all those things are cute, but at the end of the day, they're very boring. And people connect to people and emotion and stuff like that. So that is literally what I've been trying to do with the podcast, is try to take away that facts and figures aspect from it, but still have the information there, but let it come from a story from somebody who walked this road, or had this experience, etc. And then I have a series on Instagram called Global Green Voices, which is very short videos, less than 5 minutes. And again, it's people sharing their stories of how they got into the field, why it's important, and what you could do about it. So it's literally just trying to use every media tool possible to put out different stories, to reach different generations, especially the younger ones, so that they could feel empowered to make a change, and they could know that their voice is useful. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think we've found by this point that people don't respond to facts and figures really, right? And they don't
Nope.
respond to fear either, like, oh, here's a scary graph about how bad things are. Mm,
Yeah.
maybe for a few minutes people feel some anxiety and then they go back to normal.
And then they move right on like nothing never happened. So, yeah. But when you have that personal story, so if I tell you about, let's say, this never happens, I can't use that. Oh, exactly. I was going to say like a storm or hurricane or something, but I've never experienced a hurricane, even though I'm in the Caribbean. But what we are experiencing right now is like Sahara dust. And the Sahara dust is so bad. And like you could go outside and see a haze over the country. It looks like there's a cloud over the island, to the point where if you look like 5 miles forward, you can't even see anything because it's completely covered by dust. We have asthma. My eyes are often red and running and itching, etc. So if I tell you that, now you're more interested. Now you realize that, oh, Sahara dust has an impact on this person, etc. But if I just say the Sahara dust is covering 52% of Trinidad and Tobago, you're lost. So that's the power of these stories and having that human aspect to it.
Definitely, yeah, we're creatures of story, I think. So
Yep.
tell me a story, maybe, if you want, about the ocean, because I want to talk about the sea, right? This very,
Mm-hmm.
very important part of our world.
Right. So a story about the ocean. I have so many because I frequently visit, but in going in team with this conversation and stuff, and actually with a campaign that I just did, called Action for the Oceans, I would give the story related to that. So I would mention, as a child, I would be going to the beach often, and in Trinidad, we don't have coral reefs, but we do, but not on a large scale, and it's not a pretty coral reefs that you see in pictures, etc. But the sister island, Tobago, they have coral reefs like first time, right? And all the different colors of fish, etc. It's absolutely amazing. So as a child, I would always go to Tobago, and we have glass bottom boats that would take you out to see the reefs and stuff. And I would always be so amazed. I'd be like, Mommy, this is the coolest thing ever. and I was obsessed with the Little Mermaid. So I was always, trying to see if maybe I could see Ariel when I would go out, etc., not knowing that she was not real. But that's a conversation for another time because I don't know, mermaids might be real. Anyways, and and stuff. And yeah, but after a while, I stopped going and I would be in Trinidad going to school, doing work 24/7, etc. And visiting Tobago was not as often as it was as when I was a child. And I remember for my friend's like 21st or 22nd birthday, she said, let's go to Tobago. And we had this whole big girls trip and we went out on the reefs. And I was stunned to my core because all the colors, all the reefs, all the fishes, everything was just gone. It was just a world of black and white because there was a severe coral bleaching event taking place, and like all the blue fishes I would have seen, everything was just gone. I have never seen something look so lifeless in my life. It was a strange phenomenon, and I was just like, wow. We often hear the phrase out of sight, out of mind, but I feel like that is when it really hit home for me. Like, I was not paying attention. I had no clue, and then these reefs are just dead, and that is the entire ecosystem lost, and how you can't build that back unless you start doing coral restoration projects with nurseries, etc. So those corals are in the ocean that died. That's it for them and stuff. So that was a huge awakening, and that's when I was like, okay, this ocean thing is serious. Climate change thing is serious. Let me really take my education seriously and try to become part of the solution. So I think that is one of my better ocean stories. There are times when I nearly drowned, etc. But all those are not, it's not related to the idea of climate change or an environmental issue. But it did teach me to respect the ocean because it is powerful. It is beyond powerful in the blink of an eye. It could go from being this magnificent world to being, I don't know, ready to take your life. So we definitely need to respect it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And in your knowledge, I guess, what are the biggest problems facing us now that are connected to the ocean?
In terms of like our activities on land or just in
Well, yeah.
general,
I guess I would ask how our activities are affecting the oceans, but in turn, how that's also, gonna threaten.
affecting us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, every single thing that we are doing has an impact on the ocean, whether we think about it or not. Some of the TVs that we have, some of the materials that go into making that TV comes from the ocean. The air that we breathe comes from the ocean. So every single thing, the ocean is literally a part of us, right? And some of I would just give a few because, of course, there's a long list of things that we could call out, but of course, the biggest thing affecting the ocean would be our industrial activities. So the fossil fuel industry, any industry that releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, because what that is doing, that is changing the ocean chemistry. And oh boy, that has a domino effect on like the species, and then because some of the species are like at the bottom of the food chain, and then if they die out, etc., then what do the species on top eat? And so the whole life in the ocean becomes threatened by that. The oceans are also warming, and this is changing the currents. And one of the biggest concerns, especially with the ocean warming, is the tropical storms. Being from the Caribbean, unfortunately, we are a region plagued by hurricanes. And Trinidad and Tobago is yet to experience a very strong hurricane because we are right outside of the hurricane belt. But with warming oceans, in the blink of an eye, we could be next and stuff. And we're seeing stronger hurricanes, and there's horrible stories of the impacts of hurricanes in the region. You could look at Dominica, Puerto Rico, etc., Haiti. The list goes on, right? And stuff. So that is in terms of the fossil fuel industry. But one thing that people don't think about is also the fact that our rivers are connected to the ocean, right? So everybody sees plastic pollution all the time, but that is the pollution that you can see. And no doubt, plastics is a problem. You know, it's plastic free July, etc. Everybody knows about plastic, so we're not going to go into that. But some of the things that you can't see is actually the chemical waste that is going into the oceans from a lot of these industries, whether it be agriculture or manufacturing, or like even something as simple as making clothes, etc. All these waste chemicals wash out into our rivers and goes into the oceans. And you and I are not going to drink a cup of red water that we see in a river, right? So why are we giving that to the species in the ocean? And again, it goes back to killing them and then affecting the food chain, affecting the whole ecosystem, and then affecting the ocean's ability to function. And if the oceans can't function, then best believe that oxygen that we love to inhale would be would be under threat. You know, the food we get, billions of people worldwide depend on fish as their main source of protein, you know. So if the fishes are gone, what are we gonna eat? You know, so it's those simple dots that we have to connect that is often not connected, or that we just can't see or understand the relationship that, but it's there. And like I said, every single thing we do on land affects the oceans, and then it comes right back and affects us, whether we see it or feel it or not. So yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that on your podcast you had an ocean series at the moment, right? Like you're focusing specifically on the oceans. Yeah.
Yeah, that was part of the campaign I mentioned. So with Peace Boat, we recently had the opportunity of joining a storytelling training program with a company called Pendulum. And for World Oceans Day this year, we had to come up with a campaign, etc. Mine was on coral reefs and stuff. I said, you know what? Let me produce a podcast season out of this, because we have some really great ocean campaigns and ocean stories, or things that I didn't think about, that was coming out from people. So I said, let me use the podcast to also share their stories, because it was powerful and meaningful. So yeah, that whole season is based on all the participants of that program and their campaigns.
Great, great. Okay, so worth checking out. Okay, so I'm gonna say this is my last question now, and that is
Right.
what I ask a lot of people. What is your vision of the future that motivates you in your work?
My vision, which I mean, it's kind of drastic, but I always, or I sometimes picture like my daughter or my granddaughter or great granddaughter, just someone from a future generation, asking me to tell them a story about the beach, because they can't go and bathe in it, and they've never experienced it, and they don't know what that's like. It's just something that they would have seen on TV, and they can't experience it. And that scares the living daylight out of me, because I cannot imagine somebody being from a Caribbean island or country and not having our relationship with the ocean. That's scary, you know. So mommy, grandma, tell me a story about the beach. Like, what is the beach like? What do people used to do at the beach? Like, what? that that is insane. So I would never want that for future generations. It's almost like how, you know, some species have been extinct, and there's some people that would have seen it or experienced it, and it just becomes like folklore. You know, I don't want the ocean, I don't want our rivers, I don't want our environment to become a story tale. And then we just stuck in this concrete jungle and can't enjoy anything, because now we're forced to survive this way because of the way we took the world, you know? So yeah, that is my biggest, I would say that is my driving force, just the fear of not having it for future generations, and me having to just tell them what that life was like, knowing that I thoroughly enjoy going to the beach, or, you know, going to the river, etc., being outdoors. So yeah, I would never want that for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting because most people answered that question with like a hopeful vision that pulled them forward, but you've gone for the dystopian vision that is
Yeah.
pushing you
I'm
forward.
drastic.
Yeah, but that's equally fair, right? And you see these dystopian future like TV shows or books where people don't know what animals are anymore, and they're just
Hmm.
something relegated to the past, and that is, yeah, that is a scary vision. So I guess it's equally important to be pushed forward by something that we don't want, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
great. So thank you so much for talking to me. And is there anything else that you want to add before we end?
Um, hmm, I don't think so, but I do have a question for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
I would love to know what inspired you to start this video series that you have going on,
Yeah.
and what are your hopes for it?
Oh, thank you. Sure, I'll answer this at this point. Um, well, my first spark, I guess, was I spent a lot of the early lockdown just adding people on LinkedIn. Yeah, I really wanted to find out more what was happening in the environmental space and the climate space.
Mm-hmm.
So I was training as a coach and a facilitator of the work that we connect. So looking at how to help people process their fears about climate change. But at the same time, I have a small garden here. I'm really interested in, food sovereignty and permaculture and regenerative
Mm-hmm.
agriculture now. And so I just wanted to connect with everybody who's doing anything in this space, And as I did that, I thought, yeah, I'd love to talk to these people. And hey, actually, some people might enjoy listening to these conversations. So the idea just
Yeah.
started to grow for let's do that. And so my hope, you know, I don't have a hope that this is going to become some massive famous thing necessarily. It's just if some people watch these conversations and they feel inspired in some way, even if it's just one person, whoever you are right now listening,
Mm-hmm.
that's enough, right? Because there's so much content out there. There's so many podcasts out there, and I think if I think of it like I'm trying to compete with that, it's not the way I want to take it. It's just here's another
Yeah.
thing that you might find. So yeah, so that's my main thing.
That's a good approach, because at the end of the day, there's so much content out there, but there's so much people out there, and people resonate with different things.
Yeah.
So that's the people is not a reason to not try, or to not do something, or to not explore a new space or activity. So yeah, that's good.